Ready to start your journey? Whether it's your first workout or you are a seasoned athlete, Endurance for Everyone Coaching wants to work with you. Our coaching team has worked with athletes from beginners to USAT national qualifiers and are comprised of experienced runners, cyclists, and triathletes who have a passion for healthy living and have been where you are. We offer comprehensive coaching programs from weekly support to basic consultation, all designed to help you achieve your goals. If you want to take your performance to the next level, look no further than Endurance for Everyone Coaching. Go to www.teamE4E.com and click on the coaching link or send an email to teamE4E@enduranceforeveryone.com. And let's get started.
Welcome to this week's Endurance for Everyone podcast.
The following program is for entertainment purposes only. Though the hosts of this show are certified Ironman coaches, their attempts at long-course triathlons and endurance events should not be taken as an endorsement for you to do something stupid too. You should make your own bad decisions, then podcast about it. Now, let's start the show.
Hey, this is John Harris.
And this is Rob Bozovich.
And Endurance is for Everyone, and this is the Endurance for Everyone podcast. Episode 129 of the Endurance for Everyone podcast. I'm John, and up there, as usual, is my good friend Rob. How you doing today?
Fantastic. How you doing, John?
You know, with all these sprints that we're doing, it's weird to like talk at the same time now.
It is. You know, people aren't going to know what to do with themselves.
They think it's fake. And the last time I screwed up and you weren't even on the show. So.
No, which is the irony to share that and all the behind the scenes magic. And I just was like laughing as I listened to it. And that is, I don't know what you did, but I mean, you could admit to whatever happened. But, you know, John, we're post recording and John's like, oh, no. So then I had to send John my file. And because we try to back it up, you know, he records and I record. That said is, I screwed up my recording. Yeah, so the fact that I wasn't in the show was 100% my fault because I didn't click record on my mic track. But I got you and Vinny, and that was the majority of the conversation anyways. But it almost made me feel like a producer of some sort because literally you guys would be sitting there and then you're like, wait, hold on. Well, that's a great question, Rob.
Well, yeah, right. Yeah. It was, but you know what? It was one of the few shows that you really did not talk a lot. You had that one little spot, so I guess we were lucky in that way. Usually you do talk. And yeah. It was just one of those weird shows that Vinny talked a lot. And so, I mean, it was a couple places. I asked a few people, did it seem weird? And I was like, Nancy listened to it, and she said, yeah, you can tell in some places he was saying something, that he had said something because you responded to it or Vinny responded to it.
Yeah,
but it wasn't really to the point that I think it threw people off.
No, it was still worth putting out. So I thought so. But
yeah, so you know, so
some might disagree, but oh well.
Yeah, but yeah, it got good downloads, but you know, things happen like that. What happened was I to record phone calls, you can't do it through my audio software that I use to put the show together. So I have to use this like little free program. And when I hit stop, and then we were talking, and when I went to go save it again, I hit the record button. And when you do that, it like gets rid of the file that's there and starts recording again.
Yeah.
So, oh my God. That's when I said, I knew immediately what I did. That's why I said, oh, please tell me you have this. But you know,
and that's why I'm like, yeah, I do. And then I'm like, well, I got 2/3 of it.
I got part of it. But you know what? At least we had something, right?
Yeah. They get what they pay for, John.
Yeah. So we're going to start off. I had a little bit of a epiphany recently.
You'd said that, and I can't wait to hear this.
Yeah. So everybody knows, you know, it's old news that, you know, I really struggle with my weight, and I've been really stuck above 270 again and really having a hard time getting down. So I think I noticed, I mentioned on one of my sprints, I was trying ketosis again, trying to, you know, just trying something to get back and get it moving again.
Right.
Because I don't really eat that bad. You know, I wouldn't say I'm 100% on point, but it's not to the point that it's bad. and I just couldn't lose weight. So I started on the ketosis thing and started dropping again, got under 260, and then went back up. So I stopped using my Fitness Pal. I started using a program called Lose It.
Okay.
Which seems to be a little bit easier to use to me. I know a lot of people use my Fitness Pal, and I used it for, 8 years now, but Lose It seems to be a little bit more user friendly. So I started really looking into not only the macronutrients, but I started looking at not the grams, like not on a granular level. So I stopped looking at saying, I try to stay under 50 grams of carbs, and I try to, do all that. I started looking at percentages.
Okay.
So, I noticed, and I don't know if there's any science to back this up. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it'll hold true. So I'm just going to put out what I've noticed is that it doesn't matter how many carbs I eat as long as my fat is above 50% of my diet.
Okay.
So I had a day that I ate maybe 23 grams of carbs. The rest, but the majority of my intake that day was protein and not that much fat, like 30% fat.
Mm-hmm.
I gained weight. So my carbs was like really low, but I gained weight.
Okay.
Then I noticed a few days later, I don't know what I ate because I don't think I ate anything really bad, but I must have had something. I think because I was running out of time, I had some processed meal or something like that. My carbs was 107. But because I had the other meals and things like that, my fat was above like 60%. So my carbs was like, my fat was like 60%. My carbs was, because that was so high, it dropped, even though at 107 grams, it dropped my percentage down to like 18%.
Yeah.
Of my total diet. I lost weight. And I don't know. So I'm not saying it's like you can eat candy and things like that, or cake or bread or whatever, and don't worry about your carbs as long as you get enough fat to push that percentage down. But it seems like, I started watching it over the next few days, and it held true. The days that I could not get my carbs below 25%, I gained weight.
Mm-hmm.
Now, yesterday, I'll say real quick, yesterday, I splurged and I had a piece of cake, which shot my carbs up to, I think, 112 grams of carbs for the day. But earlier in the day, all I had was fish and salad with, full fat dressing, things like that. At 117, my carbs percentages was like 23%. I lost weight today. Okay.
I'm taking notes and trying not to interrupt. So go ahead.
Yeah. So I don't know. There's probably people out there much smarter than I am. All I know is I look at numbers and I look at trends, and that's what I do for a living. So that's my whole job. And I'm noticing these little issues. It's not like me to have cake, but for some reason last night I said, you know what, I'm going to have a slice of that cake because it just looked good. And I said, I'm for sure going to gain weight today because I had that cake last night and my carbs were so high. But when I lost weight, I went in and looked at it, and sure enough, my percentage of carbs was low because of all the fat I had. My fat was like 60-something%.
Can I ask 4 or 5 questions?
Absolutely.
I got a bunch of interjections here now.
Okay.
If it's my turn to talk, Sean.
It's your turn.
It's my turn. Excellent.
It's your turn.
So, and this, I'm going to go down the rabbit hole. It doesn't matter just because I want to say some stuff, and then I'm going to come back to it. And that's, I remember years ago when I first started losing weight, of course it was, calorie in, calorie out and whatever. I remember I had said, hey, I tried dieting, and that didn't work. I tried exercising. That didn't work. But damn, wouldn't you know, diet and exercise actually work. It's one of those, you never know what exactly is going to hit, and what's working one day may not work down the road. I have a question, and a couple of them that I'm going to dig a little bit deeper. You said full fat dressing. You said full fat salad dressing. What are you using as a salad dressing?
A bunch of different things. Actually, I've used ranch. I've used just straight olive oil. So when I say full fat, I'm usually talking about olive oil.
Okay. So, but you do still use, and this, I'm picking apart, and forgive me. I'm not asking you, John, to forgive me, but you can. Forgive me, audience, for divulging or however you say it, and going down the no sugar, no grain type of path. But
Yes.
that's kind of where I'm heading with part of this.
Right.
And that is, you say you're using dressings, so you're using store-bought ranch. So I'm assuming it has some sugars and stuff like that.
I know. I find the kind that has no sugar.
Okay.
So I do look for that. Yeah.
I did not even know that existed. That was a deviation, because as long as you've been on this path, I figured you knew to check for that. I only start picking that apart because my father-in-law gave me a ring the other week, and him and his girlfriend had been trying. They've been eating cleaner, and he actually called me, and I had a few-minute conversation because his son had said a term he didn't know, which was ketosis. And that being said, as you've heard me say before, my father-in-law is a diabetic, and he said I once that common misconception. He says, what is this? I'm told I can't. What is it? So I went through the whole difference between ketosis, which is your body living on fat, versus ketoacidosis, which is you're dying, so and I went through the explanation, and then I said these are the two terms and they're completely different, and we started talking about the hidden sugars and this and that. Like I believe he did watch The Magic Pill after you and I had watched it, and I even told him I haven't completely finished it, but I said go watch that sugar film. John, you were the one that recommended that to me. Yes, and I'm only about 3/4 of the way through it because I only watched a little bit here and there, but about halfway through it really starts. I think that film does a really good job talking about the hidden sugars, just hearing it, because, and that's something, and I don't have a label in front of me, so forgive me as an example though, when you start going through it, it'll say, ingredient 1, ingredient 2, ingredient 3, sugar. But then you go ingredient 4, ingredient 5 might say agave. And then it'll say ingredient 6 and ingredient 7 is high fructose corn syrup. Well, the fact is there's 3 types of sugars. And if you were to actually add those together, it would make it the number 1 ingredient that's in that. And that's what I was trying to show him and tell him. And that's why he even asked me, hey, Rob, like what's the difference with these natural? Because I told him get these natural peanut butters, and then you got to stir the oil into it, not the Jif. And he's like, why? And finally he's actually asked me, he said why? And I said, go look at the ingredient list, to see what all's in it. And he's like, wow. But him and his girlfriend took it a step farther. I'm going to say diving into the data stuff like you do. He starts asking me or shooting me numbers about grams of, because now he's looking at not just the ingredient list for sugar, but he's looking at the grams of sugar, and I said, listen, if it says peanuts, it doesn't matter what the grams of sugar are. If it just says peanuts, if there's no added, sugars to it, you're fine, because he's now looking at, I'm not saying he's getting carb phobic and sugar phobic, but he's actually reading those numbers. And I'm telling him, like, at this point, and that's where, and she's helping him, but they're doing it. I don't want to say half in because they're trying, but once again, it's the old brainwashing thing where she would say, well, we did this and this, and he had this a turkey wrap for lunch, and it was only 2 real thin pieces of turkey. And I said, listen, give him 17 pieces of turkey. Exactly. Throw the wrap away.
Exactly. Right.
And that's where I'm trying. And that's why, and I don't want to sound like a jerk. Both my brothers are on a pretty good weight loss trajectory for each of them, and they're both doing things completely different, and that's fine. And I'm glad that they are. But about 4 years ago, once I lost some weight and it kind of stuck, my one brother called me and said, "Okay, what are you doing?" And I said, well, let me ask you, are you, first off, if you're not going to jump into everything, it's not really worth trying any of it. So are you going to give up the beer at Golf League on Thursday night, the wine with your wife on Friday and Saturday, and wings on Tuesday? He said, no. I said, then don't worry about it. You're already having too much of the other stuff. I just don't want people to jump into this and anything. And when I say really feel like, I don't want to poo-poo on some progress, but I don't want somebody like thinking, man, I'm doing so great, but still doing the calorie deprivation. So now you're not eating the stuff you want to eat or you think you do, and you're hungry and you're not seeing the weight loss, and then you're just mad at everything and give up. Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at with some of it.
Yeah.
All that being said, sorry, that was about a 6-minute ramble.
That's all right.
But I'm coming back to my question to you, and you said some people are smarter than you. One thing, and he who shall not be named had said, but he had said about, like you're saying, you can't eat with impunity, right. But if you have enough fat to cover it, like if an example, if you were to eat ice cream, but if you pour some heavy whipping cream on top of it, it fattens it up so that you don't have as much of a hit. You don't have as much of a glycemic, load. You don't have as much of an insulin spike, and it doesn't drag it out. Something I've always jokingly but seriously thought, and it tracks, and this is not diet advice, anyone, but I've always noticed if I sit down and eat a piece of cake a day for a week, okay, I will gain weight. But if I sat down and ate 7 pieces of cake one night, 2 days, 3 days later, it's kind of like it almost like overloads my system. It all just pushes through me, and then it's gone and it's done. Mm-hmm. And that's why the only other question I have, coming back to how you're tracking it, you're talking about carb this, carb that. I'm assuming you're talking like I know you don't eat a lot of sandwiches, but I'll just say it. If you have a sandwich and you have a half a bag of carrots, you're adding the total carb count for everything is what I assume is how you're getting to your percentages.
Yeah, because that's how it tracks it. It tracks it by meal, of course. So whatever you eat for that meal, right, and that's what it would be. So that being said, it's like, okay, so if I had a sandwich and like you said, instead of 2 slices of turkey, put 10 slices of turkey on it. Yeah. What seems to work, and I guess going back to, and I'll say his name, Vinny said, is that if you cover it with the fat, or if you cover it with something else to get that percentage lower, mm-hmm. it's going to cover it. Yeah. And it seems to be what's happening, because I noticed that
I'm even when the sandwich, but if you had 2 pieces of bread, the thinnest little tiny itty bitty piece of, meat, vegan mayo. And I say that for a reason, because my wife, trying to do good a year ago, went out and bought Just Mayo, the brand Just Mayo. Yeah. It's vegan mayo.
What's in vegan mayo?
I was going to say that the number one ingredient in real mayonnaise is eggs. Yeah. Vegans don't eat eggs. Right. So when you look at it, it was about 6 types of oil, and it was like 6 types of oil and high fructose, and it was
gross.
It tasted about the same. Yeah, but it was 10 things I couldn't pronounce, and most of them, like hydrogenated soybean oil or something.
And at the risk of like ticking off a bunch of vegans, how is that better for you than eggs?
They're not. If you're vegan, and that, once again, I'm not, but I'm going to defend. If you're vegan for ethical reasons, because you don't want any that's I get it. But if you're doing it, stuff. If you're doing it for health, then I agree with your argument. If
that
you're
makes
doing
no sense to me. I'm
sorry. I understand. I'm just saying, though, and I'm going to go back to what I was saying. If you have 2 pieces of bread, and if you have the vegan mayo, which is basically sugar, and if you have 1 piece of cheese, which is, let's be honest, dairy has fat, but if you have low-fat cheese on it, you have a slice of sugar, and you only have 1 piece of meat. If you looked at the percentages of that, I'd guarantee that your carb / sugar is going to be like 95% of that sandwich.
And you'll gain weight.
Yep. But if you go the opposite route, if you have 2 slices of sandwich, but if you make it like what do they call it? The Dagwood. I'm holding my hands up like 2 feet apart here. If you have if you have a 2-foot hoagie, but if it's only like the bread is only 6 inches, if the bread is only, a half an inch thick, but you have 2 feet of vertical of meat in it, it's going to be so far offset and lost in it that, and to be honest too, this is where, and everyone forgive me, this isn't me saying here's the science behind it, but here's where I think we actually need to maybe have some folks on because I thought they were fantastic shows a number of years ago, and these people made the circuits on 10 different podcasts. They were on Vinny, they were on Abel, they were on I say Marathon Training Academy. I think they were on Latest in Paleo. They were all over the place, and we don't hear about them now. But you remember hearing about resistance starches?
Oh yeah.
And the thing was, it's not John eats a potato today, but it's you cook the potato, then you put it in the fridge, but then it crystallizes it somehow, but you eat it like day 2 or day 3, kind of like, and it sounds weird to say like refried beans, the same idea, but beans are different than potato. But it's not about you eating it, but it's about feeding your gut microbiome in order to keep the little bugs inside you happy. In which case, just like you breathe in oxygen and breathe out carbon dioxide, a plant breathes in carbon dioxide and breathes out oxygen. So it's this symbiotic relationship that if you eat some of these things, and I'm going to say the bread as an example, if you overload your gut with bread, you're doing some other damage to it. But if you give your gut a little bit of diversity, you're feeding all the little different buggies inside you, and you're going to probably help them flourish. And I think that is a big component of weight loss, but I'll say it on the opposite, and that's a big part of the whole metabolic syndrome issues, or people that have a quote leaky gut syndrome, where you're messed up on the inside from years of eating the wrong stuff, and that I think it always comes down to, I don't want to say anything with impunity, but also nothing in. When I say excess, like this isn't, the Martian. We're not living on Mars with only one potato to clone and eat forever type of deal. This is we have a vast variety of foods available. We need to eat a variety of foods a day, a week, a month, and we need to eat them seasonally as they're supposed to be. We're not supposed to have apples year round. We're not supposed to have beans year round. You need to vary what you eat when you eat it. I'm not saying keep your gut guessing like a different necessarily meal every day. You could eat the same stuff for a week, but then whatever you eat for 2 or 3 months in the summer, you shouldn't necessarily be eating the exact same stuff through the winter. That's kind of where I'm going with the diversity of it there.
Yeah, no, it makes a lot of sense. And it's things that I've known. It's like the potato thing you mentioned. Megan Nana Syncope has talked about that before, is that she'll make potatoes and then let them cool and take them with her the next day on a run. Yeah. And that is the resistant starch. And that's really the basic, idea behind UCAN also, but it's that resistant starch, that doesn't spike it. It spikes it a little bit, but it's more of a level insulin spike. It's not the spike and then drop. So speaking of that, they found out more medical stuff that I've been feeling like I didn't tell you I was going to talk about this, but I've been feeling for like about a year like run down and just like tired all the time and kind of fatigued, and I knew something was wrong, and I have the thyroid, don't have a thyroid, so I maybe related to that. But about a year ago, they had, if you remember back, that I was on testosterone injections.
Yeah.
A little over a year ago, my new endocrinologist took me off those because he thought that, well, maybe your body, since you've lost the weight, maybe your body's kind of kicked that in. So let's take you off it and see what happens. Well, the last time I went in there was about a little over a year ago. My testosterone level had dropped to like 220. It was at 600 with the injections. It's supposed to be between 3 and 8.
Okay.
But so it had dropped a lot, and when it got under 300, I was getting a little worried. I mean, he said, no, it's probably just trying to kick back into gear, blah, blah, blah. Well, with all these other things, I've had other issues too recently, and I realized I hadn't been back to see him in over a year, so I gave him a call and said, I need to come back in. I need to get this stuff checked. Well, bottom line is that they had to up my thyroid medication because my thyroid levels were off, and my testosterone had dropped to 120.
A little bit low.
A little bit low. So they pulled more blood out of me that day, and she's supposed to call me if it's still low. They're going to have to put me back on injections. The bad and the good of that is that I hate taking all this medication. I hate it. I want to get rid of a lot of it. But it's one of those chicken egg type of things, is that if I lose weight, I don't need the medication, but without the medication, I gain weight.
Yeah.
So, and then I need the medication more. So, but I knew something was wrong. When you've had it as, this issue as long as I've had it, when your body's not right. Something's up. This is not a lot of difference that I did before. Why am I gaining weight again? Things like that. So it's partly that, I believe. My blood pressure 3 weeks ago was 185 over 113.
A little bit high.
Yeah, that's especially the second number. You're starting to get close to 100. I mean, you're starting to talk serious issues. So I had to go to the cardiologist last week too. Luckily, nothing wrong, but it all relates, right? It's like, so now they have me on this, high blood pressure medicine again, which I had been off when I had lost the weight. They took me off it. So now all of a sudden I have a high blood pressure again. All this stuff happens, and, I have to go in for a procedure Friday, which I'm not looking forward to. So it's, an outpatient thing, but you have to be under for it. And I don't like being put under, and, it's just all relates to everything. So, the diet relates to the weight gain, and all these other things is it's just a big swirl of stuff. The good thing in all this is that it's never good to find out you need all this stuff or something's going on, but it's good in a way that at least you know what it is now.
Right.
I'm not crazy. I knew something was wrong, and now let's fix this. Let's get this fixed. I'm not going to be, I did talk to the doctor, the endocrinologist. I was talked to one of his assistants, like nurse practitioner things. And she was actually questioning why he took me off the testosterone in the first place. Because she said you weren't really ever in the safe. Once it dropped below 300, you should have been right back on it.
Yeah.
And I told her, I said, well, it seemed like he was really against me being on it at all. He didn't like it. And I said, well, what he didn't like really was the injections. He wanted to he prefers topical, the topical stuff, which didn't work on me when I tried it at the very beginning. But she said, well, she goes, you haven't seen him in a while. He's kind of changed a little bit on that.
Yeah.
And talking about the spikes, we were talking about the show, it's kind of like the same thing. When you take an injection of testosterone all at once, it was like mine was 0.75, doesn't mean anything to you, I know. But when I shoot it like that on Sundays, I used to do it, my testosterone would spike for like a few days and then drop. So I feel really good on Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. By Wednesday, I started dragging a little bit. By Thursday, I was dragging really a lot because it had dropped back down. And then Sunday would kick back up again, and drop back down. So kind of like the insulin spikes, right? So,
right.
She said the way to do it now is that they almost take what you need on a weekly basis and they half it. So you take a shot on Sunday and then you take another shot on Wednesday or Thursday.
I was just going to ask you that. So there's an answer. Okay.
Yeah. So it's a little bit different now, the way they do it. And that makes sense to me. So now it may spike a little bit, but then when it's starting to come back down again, you hit it again, and it's kind of should even it out a little bit. Other issues that I knew something was up, or not up, so to speak. But TMI. But I'm almost 55, but I'm a healthy 55. Let's put it that way. So I knew something was wrong. So good in a way that, it's things are starting to become clear. The weight's starting to drop again. I'm starting to figure this stuff out after 8 years. Like, say, oh, I get it now. So sometimes, and I kind of joked about it on a post. I think I just put a Facebook post. It's like, it's kind of funny how you can be doing something for 8 years and it finally hits you what it is.
Yeah.
So let's see if it keeps up,
That's it. Only one way to see is to do it.
That's it, man. So, let's get off that subject a little bit and let's talk about, your back.
Talk about my sporadicness stuff.
Let's talk about your sporadic stuff. Speaking of sporadic,
speaking of being all over the place.
Yeah. I sent you a text today. I said, what is going on with your training, man? Cause I looked, cause I send you I send Rob, his training plan usually on Mondays for the next week. And so I get on there today and I look at his last week and it's like, well, everything that I kind of like gave you wasn't done, but all this other stuff was done.
Yeah.
It's like, what is going on?
So, and for an example, and I'll have to go back to it, and that, I don't even know here. Oh, no, those don't count. Okay, I got to go back through. So John gave me Wednesday of last week. And so green is good. Yellow is like, yeah, okay. And red is bad. So John gave me a run and a swim on Wednesday, which both of them are red with no data, meaning I didn't even do that period. But then I had an hour and 17 minutes of cycling that day. Right. And then on Tuesday, John had me, did I do something? Yeah, I'm sorry. Whenever so John just had a run. He said run or fast run. And John wanted me to do 5 miles or so. And I did 1.84. And but I also did an hour and 24 minutes of cycling, right. 18 minutes. So, and I'll jump to the conclusion of it, and that is I decided to do a bike ride coming up soon. And as such, I decided I needed as much cycle training as I could possibly fit in. But as I had said in this couple of sprint episodes, I'm signed up for StepBet and I'm signed up for RunBet. So I need some daily steps, and I need my daily. When I say daily, my RunBet, and this is the final week, and I probably won't sign back up for one for a few weeks. We'll see. But that being said, it's minimum of minimum. It only counts 4 runs a week. You need to do 4 runs. They have to have a minimum pace of 18-minute mile, and it has to be at least a half hour. So on the days where, I needed at least 4, I'm using air quotes now, runs, when I run an 8 to a 9-minute pace, not an 18-minute mile pace. But it's one of those either walking to work or from work, or I'd put the little guy in the stroller and I would go for my half hour, 35-minute, I'm going to use air quotes, run. I would do basically a walk with him in the stroller at about a 14, 15-minute pace. So I wasn't actually running, but I had to have them tagged as a run on my thing, so that way the data would upload and it would all go through it. Right. Some people might say that's against the spirit of the game, but the spirit of the game, and I don't want to sound like a dick. Forgive me, we got to bleep that out. Bleep. But if I'm going for a run with somebody, and if I have to slow my pace to match theirs, am I still running? The answer would be yes, right? Well, let's say I slow that pace to a 14-minute. Is it a walk? Is it a run? To the fact that I'm doing it solo, I just need, I needed to get those in. So that's why you saw those sporadic runs that were very short in nature, because I was just out for a stroll or literally pushing the stroller, getting my distance in. And I tried to get as many bike rides in as possible. That said, is this week I'll go ahead and switch off and switch out a couple, and I'll try to maybe get I went for a run today, just under 4 miles. I had to get done so I can come here for this. I might throw a swim in later in the week. We'll see. Thursday is going to be a yard work. Labor Day, my dad's coming up to help me as I'm taking the day off, so it's going to be a day of shoveling gravel and mulch and stuff like that. So I don't know if I'll get up early.
Well, that counts as a workout.
Oh yeah, that counts, but that's something that then won't be tracked. And whenever I go and do that, when I go to do this, my training now and then I'll even say for the next few weeks is going to be screwed up, because I'm going to have that bike ride, which will be 2 potentially 75-mile days back to back. So the day before most likely would be like a taper with nothing, 2 long days of riding, although at not the most aggressive pace, and then probably a day off or 2 off, then back into some sporadic, as much swim, running, biking training that I can do. Then I go away to Canada for my family fishing trip, and then I come back, so there's 5 days that I can potentially swim if the lake isn't freezing temperatures, because it'll be hot, but the lake may still be 50-degree water, which Amy is listening.
Yeah, I was going to say, Amy would say
That's perfect.
That's
and
perfect
yes,
weather.
but being that I'm, none of my compadres can swim that well, I don't want to rely on them to have to yank me out should I get too cold. So, that's usually a trip where I end up on our trip up and back. I'll run like the 2 days of traveling. On the way up, I'll run both days. Then I swim maybe 2 or 3 days out of the 5 that were there. Then I run the 2 or 3 days that were back. And then it's right into the damn try. So
Yeah.
we'll see what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And I say all that because technically this is my, and I don't want to say off month, but the month of May is not a lot, a training heavy month for me, but June 1 starts the whole Hansen's training plan again.
Yep.
Which I don't know. I mean, I thought it went really well, and some things you and I had discussed off mic that I don't quite know if you wanted to just go through it here and discuss most of that on mic. And that's just what would be upcoming training wise, and so people can see. And maybe this might sound like more of a plug for like John the coach, but like some folks had asked us or me, like, Rob, you were doing the Hansen plan. They'd ask me at least, did John do this? Did John do that? And I said, hey, listen, we basically followed that plan to a T.
Yeah, we did, because there was a reason for that. Normally, I just sold a plan recently and I used it as a base. I did change it a little bit, things that I don't quite, I'm not a big fan of, but there was a reason why we used the Hansen plan. Normally I wouldn't do that.
Yeah.
But,
and that one of those reasons is I wanted to do it.
Right. We wanted to see what it did, if it worked.
Yeah. And then that being said, is the difference coming up over the next, I'm going to say 4 months, because that's about a 4-month training cycle while we're in the throes of summer, I should say. And that is, if you remember, and I'll just briefly cover it, the Hansen plan is 2 SOS days, something of substance, basically a speed work day and a tempo day. Those are Tuesday, Thursday. Then it's basically a long run on the weekend, and the remainder of your days, so that's 3 out of 6 runs. The other 3 runs are done at an easy recovery pace that obviously build in distance. They start off like 3-4 miles or whatever. They end at somewhere like 6-8 miles near the end of the training cycle. Okay, what John and I have discussed doing is keeping those something of substance days and then taking the easy run days and swapping those into bikes, swims, or maybe like 1 day a week I'll look at like a double workout, probably a Saturday brick session, which is a bike and a run. And that's why this former 4-month session of just following the plan essentially to a T, John's been watching my heart rate, my paces, knowing what my, so to say, capabilities are. That way, as we come into summer, he can watch what the training stresses are putting on me, and we know that I'm not going too hard, risking injury or anything like that. And that's where that's being the client coach for a few years, and John has my data, knows what we're looking for, and etc. Now,
that's the best thing about having an ongoing longer relationship, is that I do have history with you now.
Yeah,
and I know if I see something wonky, okay, that's not right, something's up. So. But you're good enough actually in the client side, is that you'll probably tell me before I even notice it.
Yeah.
You'll say something happened. So
yeah. And that's pretty much like I'm coming back off of a workout or run or a bike, and I'm, it didn't go how I planned, and I know John's going to see it and he'll want me to put the notes in the Training Peaks, but I want to defend myself, like, I had to use the bathroom, John. That's why I cut it short. Wasn't being lazy.
Yeah.
So, but anyways, one thing I don't know if you noticed, and I should say, I had texted you after it, and it's been a week or 2 now or more. He who shall not be named. That being said, is he had a Friday show, and did you hear him covering Zone 2? And did you notice what I'm about to go through and say as well, or no?
No, I did not.
Okay, so Vinny, bad name. Vinny had a show, but he was talking with somebody. And I forget, and it's something he has said for years and years and years and years. And once again, he's a trainer. He knows his stuff. And he had talked about going faster in a marathon, and he had said zone 2, zone 2, zone 2, zone 2. He said it's all zone 2. If I can get you to do 2 months or good, and if I can get you to do 4 months, you're going to be even better. And at 6 months or 9 months, or he can basically kept lengthening it out and saying the longer you can do zone 2 training, and I'm going to briefly cover what he said, briefly cover the entire concept, because I'm not the trainer. I'm not the coach. You are, John, but you can see where I'm going with it, and you could interject your thoughts and so forth. And that is, hey, if I go out right now and my zone 2, and John, let's just quickly, it's what, 180 less your age? Yep. Rough calculation for Maffetone, okay?
Yep.
So 8, that goes to 7, 4, 10. So my heart rate zone, that roughly says a 145. Right. Now, if you're sedentary, you take some points off of that. If you're not sedentary, if you have an activity, you add some points to that. Right. And then it's usually what, a plus or minus, we'll just even say 5 range. So using
I'll usually go, like for you, I would say, like if it's yours is 145, I would add 5 and then go like 150 to 160. I would say that'd be how I would do it. Yeah.
So what you're looking at there, folks, would be is if I go out right now and if I want to train in zone 2, which is the fat burning zone, where I continue to, that's what's going to be good for losing weight. That's also going to be like how you can quote go all day, and that's where, if you heard me, or if you listened to our Pittsburgh recap, you heard me say I ran almost 70% of that race in zone 2. Now I had some 3, some 4, some 5, whatever. But that's where the theory being, if right now I go out and I walk and my heart rate hits that zone, that's my zone 2. I'm not going any quicker than that. But the more you walk, the more in shape you're going to get. You'll start, instead of one, I'm just going to put some times on it just so that you can see a progression. If my zone 2 walking pace right now is a 15-minute mile, then after a couple of weeks, I might need to start walking at about a 14-minute mile pace. And then I'm going to have to start doing a light jog to make it a 13, then a 12, then a 10. And you're going to progress through that, and to the point where you're going to be out there. Like when I say like me, when I talk about the majority of the training that I did, and you actually go back and look at it, most of those easy runs, 3 of those runs a week I was doing were heart rate in zone 2. So if you have 3 runs at 6 miles apiece, I have 18 miles of running a week that I'm doing in zone 2, or roughly let's say 3 hours if I'm doing a 10-minute pace, just to make it easy here. So I have 3 hours of zone 2 work a week. I ran most, like I said, that Pittsburgh race, and I averaged an 8-something, just about a 9-minute mile, depending on what I was running. Right. So you can see that months of training brought it down. So that's why I want to come back to the Vinny and the point of where I was going with it is, Vinny said, I would have you do nothing but zone 2. And then maybe after a month or 2, I might throw in an interval day. And then after another month, I might throw in a like he basically called it something else, but he said a tempo day. Mm-hmm. And he said, and then, probably going to have you doing a long run. What he inadvertently said is exactly the Hansen plan. The Hansen plan, yeah. He literally just, and that's why I said that, if you guys remember when I had, Luke Humphrey on, because he talks about the science behind it, and that is essentially their plan is built on this cumulative fatigue that keeps you kind of tired and doing the work. Well, what Vinny just said is, after decades of training people, it's, hey, you want to run faster, or I'm going to say it anything. If you want to swim faster, if you want to bike faster, well, you have to do the faster workouts. But that being said, is you can't, most people, and I can't say blanket everyone, and I'm not the trainer, John's the coach here, he can tell us, I'm just the athlete. But if you're going to go out and do any work, keep it in that zone 2. You want to pay attention to that heart rate. You don't want to go into your zone 3, because that's kind of the gray zone, the junk zone, where you don't want to be. Right. But stick to zone 2, which is, air quotes here, easier. And the more volume you do, the better and faster you're going to be at it. Then you throw in a day or 2, of speed or interval work, And that's going to get you that little bit extra on top of this volume you're doing. I mean, like I said, it's just when you go back and listen, like it's probably, I think, a 2 Friday ago show, or maybe 3 at this point for him. It's exactly that, which is exactly what the Hanson's, plan is based around, which is what just piles and piles of research are out there saying. It's really, it's not a secret. Like I made the joke earlier in the show. I tried diet, it didn't work. I tried exercise, it didn't work. I put diet and exercise together, it worked.
Yeah.
This comes down to consistent training with a little bit of speed work. That's all it is.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And there's different methods to get to that, but it's basically that. A lot of zone 2 with a little bit of speed thrown in.
Yeah.
And I like zone 2 is like, you say it, quote unquote, it's the easy zone, but I always look at zone 2 as is the hard zone for two different people. The people just starting, staying in zone 2 is hard because it's hard to keep your heart rate down.
Mm-hmm.
I joke all the time. I get in zone 2 getting out of my car.
Yeah.
So, and I've always had an issue with that. My heart rate goes up very quickly.
Yeah.
So it's hard to, if I'm doing a zone 2, a longer zone 2, I did one yesterday. Nancy and I went out and did, like a little over 4 miles in the woods. And, we walked most of it, but it was like I stayed directly right in the middle of zone 2.
Yeah.
And it's also hard for people who are very good because they don't want to walk.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, I have one client right now. She bought into it pretty quickly, but yeah, for people who can run, who really can run, I'll use Christine Cox, for example. She can run.
Mm-hmm.
To tell her no, I want you to do 10 miles in zone 2. Don't go out of zone 2.
Yeah.
That would drive her crazy.
Yep.
She wouldn't want to do it. And so it's hard for each end of the spectrum, right?
Yeah. Well, I guess I don't know how I don't feel that I'm on, forgive me, the fast end of the spectrum. And I don't want to admit that I'm on the slow end of the spectrum. So I'm going to just say that I'm the Jan Brady of the middle that you used to talk about. Yeah. And I'll say that the zone 2, I think, is hardest on your pride because you really, you want to be going so much faster, but it's a measurable metric. It's right there. It's black and white. Are you in it or aren't you? Your heart rate's monitor's gonna tell you.
Yeah, it screws with your pride for sure. And because even people just starting like me, to have to walk a lot to stay in it, that hurts your pride a little bit. Mm-hmm. It hurts your ego a little bit. But and then for people who are fast, don't want to walk.
Yeah.
To them walking, to some, I won't say to all of them, but to some, walking is not running. That's a failure if you have to walk at all. So I heard we were watching, I don't know why it just came to my mind when you were talking, but we were watching last night reruns of The Office. Did you ever watch the show?
I've watched it start to finish probably 4 times.
Okay, so you'll probably remember this. But remember when they did the fun run to
the rabies 5K fun run?
See, you picked right up on it. And remember when Pam was talking to Jim about her race strategy? He asked her what her race strategy was. And she said, well, I'm going to start my race strategy. I'm going to start off really fast. And then in the middle, I'm going to go really fast. And then at the end, I'm going to go really fast.
Yep.
And he says, that's brilliant. Why doesn't everybody do that? She goes, because they're stupid.
Yep.
It cracked me up last night. I was watching it. It's like, that's so funny. Obviously they're being tongue in cheek because you know how they are, but
oh yes,
that's so funny because they're stupid. I don't know, because they're dumb. It came to mind when you were talking about that for some reason, but
oh man, I get it.
Yeah, I get it. I want to ask you something about this DIETBET thing.
Go ahead.
I do have you as a friend on it, even though I've never done one.
Yup.
And I'm looking at it. Have you really won that much money? It tells me how much you've won.
So, okay, yes and no and yes. So it lies a little bit, okay?
Okay, that's what I want to ask. Is that real?
So, no, I'm going to give it to you and I'm going to, and people will, and I don't care if people know this. So just give me a second while I actually pull it up, okay? And because I don't want to give a wrong number, okay?
I can tell you what it is. I'm looking right at it.
Yeah, but I need a different number as well.
Oh, okay. You obviously have more than I have.
Not exactly. I can go to my.
It tells me it says played 10 games, won this much, and it tells me your progress.
Yeah. Okay. So no, here's where I'm at, and so. And it would have, I don't know how much it told you, but that being said is right now, and somebody else had asked me the question, like how hard or easy, because now keep in mind, and John, you brought it up because I wasn't going to talk about these things anymore. There's step bet, diet bet, run bet. Step bet and diet bet, when I say they're tied together, they're all through the same company, but somehow step bet and diet bet, like they'll pull together on one, I'm going to use air quotes, points system. So if I buy into a game and then I win and I get my winnings, okay, it goes into a point pool and I can use them for either one of those games. Run bet, I had to buy in on a separate pool. Like it wouldn't transfer from the other pool. I don't know why. Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
So that being said, but in this, I won, and I'm using air quotes here. I just cashed out about $600 from the game. Okay.
Right.
Now that said, of that 600, I had 400 into it. Okay, because I had I had to buy in. Okay.
Right.
But now here's the last part behind that. Okay, what I'm including all three different games buy-ins. Okay, and I'm not including in that cash out of what I currently have. Like so essentially the way I'm looking at it is this: I just cashed out $600. I put 400 total in since I've started. So that's $200. I'm using air quotes profit that I've made. Okay. In addition, I currently have 2 step bet games going. Okay. At I think $40 a piece. So I have an extra $80 that's sitting in those step bets. That's on top of that 200. That's just straight profit at this point. Plus, I have the run bet. So I have probably, I think, another $160 sitting there that I'm using. That it's house money. It's casino money at this point. Okay, I've already got my investments, my initial money back out of it, plus 200 profit, plus the extra 160 that I'm sitting there playing with right now.
I gotcha. Okay.
So I wanted to be clear on all those numbers.
So that makes more sense to me now.
I could say, hey, I have $760 winnings less my but they basically out the door. I have 200 profit that's back in my pocket, and I'm playing on their money, and I have an extra $160 of their money at this point.
Gotcha. Okay, that makes more sense to me because when I saw that number, I was like, wow. And then I started thinking about, maybe that includes his buy-ins too.
Right. And now there's that does include the buy-ins, but now there's 2 other things, and I will share maybe. Okay. But, and I'll keep in mind, at one point, so you can only play in one game at a time. If you're not a member, I became a member, which was a $50 fee. Okay. But that lets you play in 3 games at once. Okay. So if you're already doing the steps or you're already losing the weight, why not be bought into it? Okay.
Yeah.
I paid for those out of winnings. In addition, when I first signed up for the one diet bet, it asks you about tokens. If anybody is going to sign up to play, don't buy, my opinion is don't buy tokens. I didn't know what it was. It's like one of those like add-on items that automatically on there. It basically means that you have the ability to weigh in weekly versus monthly. And if you weigh in, because it doesn't force you to, you get entered into a pool to win prizes. So they do give away like a couple of big prizes, like a watch and whatever. And I actually won one of them, which is like, it's a Get Fit board. It looks like a little bent piece of plastic, almost like something you'd see on an infomercial. Like it's about the size of a skateboard, but it's all a little bent and twisty. Basically, you're just supposed to like put it on the floor and like you twist and turn and you follow the workout video. I don't know. It retails for like $19 or something. You know what I mean? So I would not buy into tokens I would not spend that money. But once again, so there's $75 as well that's already been covered, so to say. I'm not adding that on. My total money in was 400. I'm 600 out, so I'm 200 to the benefit, and I have extra money in the pot that I'm playing with that's theirs.
Okay, that makes sense now. Because
So
I meant to ask you about that before, and when you started talking about it, I pulled it up.
Yeah,
I got to ask him about this.
So anybody asking me like, hey, would you do it again? Or, I mean, yeah, I'm still currently doing the steps and the runs because I'm running anyways. Okay. So it's like there's not a big quote profit margin, maybe like $4 a game or $10 a game on the running ones. But if it's something to build a habit, or in this case, it's free money. I'm doing it anyways. Why would I not sign up for it?
Right.
And that's how I'm looking at it. And it would be a little more difficult at this point. It was easy enough because I was coming off of coming into Thanksgiving and all that. Like I was coming off of inflated weight from poor diet, and I knew I wanted to get to where I'm at now, but to do a 1 month diet bet, I'd need to lose like 4 pounds, or not 4 pounds, 4%, which would be, about 8 pounds. To win the 6 month challenge, I'd have to lose 10%, which is be about, 20 pounds. Not completely unforeseen that I could potentially do it, but, it'd be a little bit tougher. I'm not willing to wager that money at this point. I don't know if I could do it. I knew I could do it before. I don't think I could do it now. And I guess that's why I really wasn't betting. I really wasn't gambling, because I knew I could do it. Now I don't know if I can. I'm
right.
I don't got the cards.
You're not going to gamble. Yeah, you're not going to gamble on it now.
I got a jack too. I'm not going all in. So
all right.
Sorry.
Okay. Funny. All right. So I think that's enough for the show, right?
That's enough rambling for the time.
That's enough for the show.
I don't, Brent, you have, I don't know what all you have this week coming up, but I know I have one coming up Friday, which we'll cover
right.
some, that's why we didn't cover some things today, because I have about a 10-minute show on Friday coming out.
Right.
And, regarding the biking thing that I was talking about, and tune in Friday for more of that. I don't know. Do you have one set to come out Wednesday or anything?
I do.
You want to tease the topic so people know what it is?
It's basically I haven't come up with a title for it yet, but I think it's going to be. See, I have it right in front of me. Rules for performing at your best. And I was trying to come up with like steps to like know how you know that you're doing the best you can on your training.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what it's about. And it'll be out Wednesday.
Did I share? No, I didn't. So I have a couple of friends that ran the Pittsburgh Marathon. Brian, who's really fast.
Mm-hmm.
Ryan, starting with an R. And Ryan ran Pittsburgh this year. This was his. Now, granted, he's not a virgin to this or anything. It's his 7th Pittsburgh. I don't know if he's done any other marathon, so this is at least his 7th marathon. Okay. He's also very light. I mean, if he's 110 pounds soaking wet, he's just a very petite statured guy. He's not real big and tall, and he's just there. Okay. Anyways, he was really going to go ahead and he was going to try to run Pittsburgh. I say try to. He completed it on about 3 weeks of training. And so like 3 weeks out, he claims he had not ran yet leading into Pittsburgh. So I took it's funny you just said that, and I took that clip, and anyone could put it in. Just go out and put Barney Stinson marathon into YouTube, and you'll get a clip from How I Met Your Mother of Barney Stinson saying, you don't train for a marathon, you just run it. Step 1, you start running. There is no step 2.
There is no step 2.
So I found that funny, but and I say it this way, like I don't want to say struggled. I thought I did the best I could. I had 4 months of training in, and I got my 4.0 just sub of 4.02. Mm-hmm. I think he did like a 4.28. Like, and that's one of those like I'm so happy for him, but on the same token, I'm like, man, I trained for 4 months and just barely beat him.
Yeah, I know that's how it is, right? Yeah.
It goes on. You were saying the rules for whatever. Here's the rules. There are no rules.
There are no rules.
Rule 1, go do it.
Go do it.
There's no rule.
Yeah, and really, one of them is kind of like that. It's like stick to it. Go do it. Yeah. Stop making excuses if you if you've been busy all day long till 9 o'clock at night and you got 3 miles on your plan, get your ass out there and go run.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it doesn't matter. You just go do it.
Yeah. If nothing else, lace up and go, I'm using air quotes, only go for a mile, because once you're
something
out there, you're not going to stop.
That's exactly right. Once you're, you know, how many times I've been out there and I had like a 6 mile run on the agenda, and I said, I'm not gonna be able to do 6 miles. I'll do 3. Then you get to 3, and it's like, oh well, I can do another 1 or 2. Yeah. And then you do the 1 or 2, and you end up doing the 6. You know, once you're out there, you're out there.
Talk yourself right into it.
Yeah, we've had a lot of rain down here. I know you've had a lot of rain up there too, and we almost bagged that thing yesterday, but you know, around 3 o'clock, it kind of lightened up, and Nancy shot me a message. Go, well, you want to go out there now? So yeah, you know what? I'll drive over. Let's go do it. And it started raining a little bit at the end, but it's like, you know, rain. You know, I can hear Megan fanning in my head saying, you know, these are trail runs, man. You run in the rain.
Yeah,
you get out there. You know, it has nothing to do with it.
Yeah, that's what. Like I went for the ride yesterday and went a little shorter than I wanted to. But you know, the option was get up and do it at like 7 a.m. and it was pouring rain, or it was going to be ride later in the day. And you know, so we opted for later. The weather was much better because we were riding on the rail trail. We didn't want to get, you know, completely thrashed and muddy as we're out there.
Right.
But the one day too is in between spurts of rain. So we went out and we hit a couple hills, and you know, we were out, you know, and we got wet. You know, it rained about 15 minutes, and then you know what? Then it was dry.
Right, and there are safety issues, of course. I mean, if it's lightning out, don't get out there in the woods if it's lightning.
Yeah, I said rain. You know, I didn't say you know, thunderstorms. Big.
Well, right. Yeah, right. We have these Florida showers all through the summer that it just rains. It could be the sun's shining and it's raining.
Yeah.
You know, so you know, use your head, you know, a little bit.
Yeah.
But so like I said, you know, get out. We got more sprints coming at you. Get out there and get your training in, you know, no matter what. Just get out there and get your training in.
That sounded very threatening, John. How's about we say, go out, enjoy it, and you know, trust us. You will not regret a run that you do, or a bike or a swim that you do.
Right, that you do. Yeah, social media, teamE4E on all the social media sites. Leave us a review on iTunes or Podbean or whatever you're using, and that will help us out. Raising money again for Team in Training. So if you go to teamintraining.org and look for my name, John Harris, you will find my name. So if you can afford a few bucks here and there for the Disney World Marathon for raising money for blood cancer, then please do that as well. Anything else, Rob?
That's all I have.
All right, and we'll see you next, well, maybe not next week because it's Memorial Day. So we'll see what's going on, but we'll get something out to you guys.
Sounds good.
We'll talk about it later.
Thanks for listening to the Endurance for Everyone podcast. If you have comments or questions for the show, send an email to teamE4E@enduranceforeveryone.com. And remember, swim calm, bike strong, and run steady.